Again. Once again.
Good afternoon, and welcome to the Crocker Art Museum. My name is Houghton Kinsman, and I'm the Adult Education Coordinator here at the museum. Before we begin today's proceedings, I'll read a land acknowledgement. We acknowledge that the Crocker Art Museum is on the traditional land of the Nisenan people, and the current state of California is the homeland of many tribes. We are honored to be here today and acknowledge our responsibility to these Native nations and our commitment to work with them as we move forward as an inclusive institution. So I want to thank you all for joining us this afternoon for Virtual U-Nite 2021. We have a wonderful program planned for you today. U-Nite rolls on despite all the odds, and today's program is one that is full of special guests, sneak peeks of performances and presentations, and a really, really exciting overview of the Crocker's event, Sac State's event on the blog, the Oculus. Let us know in the chat if you've had a chance to view the event already and if you have any highlights. A quick reminder that many of our public programs are now back in person. You can register for favorites like classical concerts, We Thursday, and Conversations That Matter online at crockerart.org. And if you haven't done so already, subscribe to our YouTube page to stay up to date with our newest digital content. I'll also be adding links to purchase gift memberships and to browse our online museum store. Now, to kick us off, it's my pleasure to welcome the Crocker's Director of Education to the stage, Stacey Shellmet Hendrick. Hey, Stacey.
Hi, Houghton. How are you today?
Good, and yourself? You're going to kick us off?
I'm good. I'm glad to be here. I want to say good afternoon to everyone here. It gives me great pleasure to join in with all the presenters and with all of you in the virtual space to tonight's U-Nite celebration. On behalf of the Crocker Art Museum, I thank you all for being here today. And I'm not in the habit of quoting Henry Ford, but there was a quote that he said that, or is attributed to him, that I think really marks this sort of collaboration that the Crocker Art Museum has with Sac State. Coming together is a beginning, keeping together is progress, working together is success. The Crocker Art Museum and Sac State's College of Arts and Letters has had a lot of progress and success with U-Nite, but I think we both see it as the beginning of something amazing, because we are conceiving of it together and we are both celebrating our role within Sacramento City. I was lucky enough to be part of U-Nite and to witness a kernel of an idea, just a little idea, some 10 years ago, actually become this event that we are still celebrating 10 years later, or at least 9 years later. It'll be 10th anniversary in 2022, but the idea started much earlier. And it started because we wanted to not only celebrate what was happening at Sac State and the amazing talent that is in the faculty and staff there, but also recognize the commitment and the creativity happening related to the arts within the community, because Sac State is part of the community and the people who are working there are part of the community. Over the years, we have improved upon U-Nite, but at its core has always been the desire to honor the talent within our community and the role the museum and Sac State play as cultural anchors. We hope you enjoy this iteration of U-Nite. We look forward to bringing it back in person in the future. And I am excited to kick it off and to pass it along to Dr. Cherie Meyer.
Hey, Stacey and everybody. I'm wearing my original U-Nite shirt so that we all kind of can remember those early days together. I want to thank Stacey. I want to thank Houghton and the entire Crocker team, not just for U-Nite, but for everything they do, both for the community and with the community and in the community. And of course, all the various projects we've been involved in together. Stacey and I think, got to know each other pretty well when she co-chaired the Creative Edge Steering Committee. And while no plan is perfect, the key themes in that plan resonate so much today, as much as they did when we went around and actually listened to the community. So I'm going to rehearse those themes because I think you'll see how they continue to play out in the work that we're sharing with you today. Number one, Sacramento's story is rich with history, innovation, and creativity. 2, cultural equity is a priority for the community and residents who want to celebrate and infuse their diverse cultures in all neighborhoods. 3, common ground is found in prioritizing art education. And number 4, Sacramento wants to see investment in the arts, in artists, and in all creatives. So U-Nite, in its collaboration between Sacramento State's College of Arts and Letters and the Crocker Art Museum, responds to all 4 of these elements, these themes. And the faculty work that are showcased this year, they do as well. You'll see stories told in writing, film, dance, and other media that are rich in both the unique identities as well as the shared experiences of our faculty. They reflect both the local and the global perspectives of a variety of cultures. In the voices of our students and their faculty, you will hear the commitment to arts education as we prepare both the artists of the future and the audiences of tomorrow. Last but not least, our continued collaboration with each other and with other arts and cultural organizations in Sacramento is truly an investment in the future. Now, in our daily lives, Sacramento State and the Crocker Art Museum confirm the power of the liberal, the performing, and the visual arts to critique, create, embody, resist, heal, and transform in the face of all the challenges. Even in the face of those challenges, we continue to seek opportunities to build communities and to remain optimistic. Each work, both in the exhibition and on the Oculus site, will show you that, as you'll hear in the discussion today, we and our colleagues are responding to the needs of today and speaking to the promise of tomorrow. So without further ado, it's my pleasure to hand things off to Kelly Lindner, the curator of our galleries as well as our art collections, and the person who actually helped curate the Oculus blog site. Welcome, Kelly.
Hi, Sherry. How are you? Thank you for that really nice introduction about U-Nite. It's amazing to sort of recognize that we will be approaching our 10th anniversary next year, and hopefully that we will be back in person for that event. I'm Kelly Lindner, and I'm the curator for the University Galleries at Sacramento State and part of this year's U-Nite committee. It has been an exciting opportunity to once again be involved with U-Nite and learn firsthand about the incredible scholarly research and creative pursuits generated by our faculty in the College of Arts and Letters. Thank you again to the Crocker Art Museum for hosting this annual event. And I really do look forward to when we can be back in person in the museum having these presentations. So in helping to put together this program for this year, I was tasked with curating the presentations under thematic umbrellas for the blog release, which we have been unrolling these last few days. And I hope that if you haven't already, that you get a chance to visit the blog and spend some time with each of the presentations. My approach for sort of grouping them all together was very intuitive and guided by overarching themes emerging in each of the presentations. The themes are meant to give you, the viewer, a point of entry to approach all of the interdisciplinary content submitted by our amazing faculty. So I thought what I would do for you today is just sort of give you a little bit of insight into some of the works that sort of spurred or guided and shaped how these thematics came about. So the first one that I'm going to show you is a walkthrough of an exhibition by Summer Ventus. This is just a little bit of a preview to her presentation that you'll find on the Oculus. But her presentation is part of a group called Considering Now, which actually launched yesterday or today, I believe. It includes diverse presentations that touch on current societal issues, from social justice and racial equity to the far-reaching effects of the COVID-19 pandemic. This past year has certainly made visible the many social, cultural, and political challenges that we continue to face. And each of the presentations in this group really sort of spoke to those concerns, as well as offered a little bit of hope. Part of why I wanted to group them together, whether it was just for how they actually approach their subject or even through humor, gave me a sense that, okay, yes, we are so embedded in a big worldwide COVID pandemic event right now, but there is hopefully, or hope is at the end of this tunnel. So Houghton, can we take a look at Summer's little clip here? All right. Ventus, who's professor of printmaking in our art department, recently had at Axis Gallery in downtown Sacramento. So I'm going to let you look at this. And this piece in particular, if you visit the Crocker, you will be able to see in person in the community gallery in the museum. So Summer's piece in particular, since I did get to see it in person, it is arresting, beautiful, poetic. All of the work spoke to me in a way that it was transformative in how what I had been experiencing, or how many of us have been experiencing over the pandemic, could be transformed into visual beauty. It touches on the death of her father, and how we really are looking at the world beyond that as individuals in terms of humanity. So that piece in particular was it sort of guided this Considering Now. It was very relevant to what we have been experiencing this past year. So the next group that I wanted to touch on is called Embodied Movement. And the presentations included here reveal various approaches to how a body in motion is a visual expression of emotion, idea, and form. So Houghton, if we can bring up Miko Latimo's clip of his piece, Cut.
Hello, my name is Miko Latimo. I'm a software artist and new media instructor at CSU Sacramento. This is my newest piece, called Cut. Cut is a generative animation written in the processing programming language. It uses algorithms to control the spidery shapes on screen. There are 3 large masses composed of approximately 20 smaller components each. These components consist of a hub and spokes. The spokes will randomly increase or decrease in number. There are 3 sectors, each with its own system of individuals. Each part chases an invisible target, sometimes catching it and sometimes losing interest. Periodically, each of the 3 sectors shift color between red and black, changing the context of the grayscale hubs and suggesting a relationship between the sectors with like and unlike colors.
So when I first had a chance to watch Miko's video animation, I was completely mesmerized by those forms, how they are crisscrossing across the screen, intersecting, expanding, closing. And it reminded me of what you might be able to see if you were, envision yourself above a dance stage and you can see dancers moving in and about, coming together, separating. So there was this very intense sense for me that it was, that these bodies, even those aren't literal bodies that we're seeing in Miko's piece, are really sort of emulating emotion, emulating how a lot of what we've been sort of experiencing this past year in being apart from each other, coming together again. And because it resonated so much with how I think and feel about dance, it was sort of put a little of a lens on how I looked at all the dance performances that were submitted. So one in particular by Nan Ho, which is called Into the Light. This is just a still image of the dancers that participate in his presentation. But I encourage you to actually go onto the Oculus site and view this piece. Maybe first view Miko's piece and then go on to visit Nan Ho's, because there was this parallel that seemed to be happening between the natural body, the corporal body actually moving across the stage, and the way the choreography in the piece, in some ways for me, looked exactly like how I was envisioning what was happening with Miko's piece. So these types of intersections between the works were really what was exciting to me to sort of see as I was trying to put them together in these different groups. So now the next group that I was going to tell you a little about, it was called Cultural Storytelling. And this follows 3 presentations framed by the specifics of cultural identity through dance, creative writing, and popular culture. So one of my goals in grouping things is I really tried not to have just like very, that each sort of department wouldn't be siloed in their own sort of group. I really wanted to mix it up, and so that you can see the breadth and the scale of the type of interdisciplinary projects that are happening within arts and letters. So the cultural storytelling group really tells that with these 3 distinct presentations. But the one in particular that sort of inspired this group is a presentation by Professor Jeffrey Dim, which is basically giving us the history of our first superhero. And I'm going to give you a little spoiler here, but it is not Superman. So do we have just the slide? Do you want to bring up Houghton? Thank you. Yeah. So Professor Dim's scholarly investigation into the origins of the world's first superhero, which has instantly engaged me. What struck me most about the presentation was his live storytelling with illustrated story cards. And what you come to find out through his presentation, that there was no actually like written down story, that the presenters in 1930s Japan actually would get to tell the story as they were sort of interpreting it from the storyboards themselves. And this very sort of under-recognized history of a superhero within the pantheon of superheroes that we have been sort of bombarded with over the past few years, it reminded me how we understand our cultural heritage and how it's located through storytelling. We really rely on storytelling to sort of orient ourselves, learn who we are, learn the differences between us. And this can take many forms, which I think is illustrated in the cultural storytelling portion. So the next grouping is History in the Expanded Field, which provides perspectives on how our understanding and experience of visual art can be augmented, or in the case of Wikipedia, perhaps limited, by access to historical context and content. So one of the great sort of projects that is now being undertaken by one of our professors, Professor Maya Dash in the art department. She teaches art history, and she has been collaborating with the Crocker Museum with her students to create audio guides for some of the works on view at the Crocker. So in developing these scripts and audio guides, this type of writing is very different than what you're going to get on just visiting the museum and looking at the object or wall labels. And it gives you this broader context of the piece. And it's almost like storytelling because it's a different kind of writing. You have to engage your audience in a different way when you're telling them a story through through an audio than you are just in a visual context. So what are the stories that can give us a fuller understanding of an artwork and maybe even give us a history lesson or a deeper insight into what inspired the artist? So I'm going to give you a little clip here. I want you to listen to just part of one and really think about what the artwork might be that they are describing. Unfortunately, these audio guides are not yet available in the museum, but are coming soon. So hopefully this will be a little teaser to encourage you to come and visit the museum again, when you will be able to sort of think about, all right, when I listened to that, is this what I was envisioning about the artwork when they were talking about it? So Houghton, do you want to play us a little clip?
Art Stories, Student Voices on the Crocker Collection.
Kehinde Wiley first visited a museum as a child. His impressions were great big paintings, history, gilded frames, a sense of power, a sense of majesty. It was here that Wiley fell in love with the history of art. But Wiley wasn't interested in the dominant European narrative. He wanted to show a world, as he stated, with black and brown bodies like my own.
In the very piece before you, Wiley may be referencing Rembrandt's Woman with a Pink, a Dutch masterpiece hanging in the Metropolitan Museum of Art, though there is some debate about this. Much like Woman with a Pink, the model is sitting sideways with a delicate flower in hand. Artists used tulips as an example of wealth and prestige during the Dutch Golden Age. The flower brings femininity and authority to Wiley's painting.
Young black men are too often considered dangerous and violent. Here,
So I hope that just gives you a little glimpse of how an audio guide, I mean, I think it also speaks to the, the popularity of podcasts right now. We really like how a story unfolds when we're listening to it. And so these audio guides and Maya sort of guiding her students in writing these out gives us an opportunity to experience sort of what I would call an expanded field of the artwork. Art is not created in a void, and giving us this historical perspective or insight into where the artist might be coming from gives us a fuller understanding of what we might be looking at. So I invite you to visit the Oculus blog at the Crocker on their website to view all of the presentations in their entirety. It's really such a satisfying experience to really see what our faculty are working on, and being able to have them out in the public in this way is really fulfilling. So now I'm going to invite Megan Brunsfold Mercedes onto the stage with me. She's going to give you a little more insight into theater and dance today. Hi, Megan. Oh, you're still muted.
It is. Of course I am, because of course I am. Thank you for that. Hello, everybody. Welcome. So yes, my name is Megan Brunsfold Mercedes, and I'm an assistant professor of dance in the Department of Theater and Dance. I wanted to share just a few insights about the work that was created by my colleagues in our department. So as you can imagine, for performing artists, the advent of a mostly virtual landscape over the last year or so has created a host of challenges. But it's also inspired many of us to delve into different methodologies for making and sharing our work. And I think that's really represented by what you're going to see on the Oculus site by these theater and dance makers. Now, while there's always been a need or a desire to create archival videos of live dance performances as a way to document one's work, Into Light, as Kelly mentioned, choreographed by Nan Ho, a lecturer and artistic director of Nan Ho Project, aims to take the viewer back into the concert hall with a fully produced dance work on a proscenium stage, again, focusing on this idea of community support. One of the things that I love about Nan's company is that it really does live his kind of mission statement of community created artwork. You're going to see novice performers, professional dancers, community members, folks who maybe were dancing in earlier iterations of their career and are now shifting into other realms. And he brings them together to create these works together. It's so nice to see many people dancing on stage together, something that has been a little bit void of late. Next up, in a similar vein, we have Osvaldo Ramirez, lecturer and new artistic director of Ballet Folklorico Nube de Oro, one of the longest standing dance companies in the Sacramento area, presenting a work with his company. This dance is from Jalisco, and it captures the exuberance, as you can see with these gorgeous costumes, and spirit of dancing in a way together that is so needed and appreciated right now. When watching the video, you'll also notice that though they've kept a mostly presentational format, they've shifted their performance area outside. So this brings up one of the other methodologies that I think many dance and theater artists have been working with in the last year and a half, this idea of site-specific locations. Now, while it's always been a sub-discipline of our work, more and more artists are literally just being forced outside for safety reasons. So site-specific performances allow for the environment to become another choreographic tool, wherein the space itself is vitally important and in essence becomes another character in the performance itself. We can see this in the work Sexism by lecturer Nicole Menker, which showcases some extraordinary graffiti art in our area. Combined with the site-specific locale, Menker is also working with an additional methodology of dance making, dance for camera, or screen dance as it's sometimes called, wherein one shifts away from the wide lens used to capture a full body performance, as with Nanho and Osvaldo Ramirez's work, and uses the camera in a way to reveal or obscure specific parts of the body. This unique way of making dances enables us to literally hone in on a part of the body in a way that we wouldn't be able to do with a live performance. Lorelei Bain, professor in the Department of Theater and Dance, also uses site-specific locations and dance for camera to create her newest work, I'm Glad You're Here /Intersections. Now, the fact that we've been back on campus this semester for some of our dance and theater classes means that I was fortunate enough to grab her on campus last week for a quick interview about her newest work. We can get that up.
Hello, my name is Megan Brunsfold Mercedes, and I'm an assistant professor of dance here in the Department of Theater and Dance at Sac State. I'm here with my colleague Lorelei Bain. I thought this would be a good opportunity on this beautiful November day to get a little bit of insight about her process and her inspiration for her work. I'm so glad you're here /Intersections. So, Lorelei, can you just tell us a bit about what inspired you to create this work?
So this work is based on a live performance work that was performed actually at U-Nite 2 or 3 years ago. It was entitled Empathy, and it was occurring in the time when Donald Trump had taken office, and we were starting to see empathy toward each other in our country just disintegrate. And so I made a trio with my company that was called Empathy, that was performed in Berkeley. And when this opportunity came up to create a dance film, the vocabulary that was the movement vocabulary used for that was transitioned into this project in a way that we could work virtually and in solo form to create a group piece.
Can you give us a little insight into your process? How did you direct these dancers in this virtual dance making?
So we added 2 additional dancers, so it's 5, and they're all women of Asian descent. And me being a white woman, we spoke a lot about Asian hate that was happening due to COVID. We talked a lot about racism and what's going on in our country, and we decided to work together collaboratively using the vocabulary that we had developed when we were in person, and we worked on Zoom, virtual rehearsals, reviewing material, after talking at length about the issues that are going on right now. And so we then shot, we found different locations for each performer to shoot themselves doing the material in these beautiful outdoor locations, site-specific locations that we could find a cameraman, which was usually their spouse or child, to hold the camera. And then the editing process, Jade Tabayoyong and Organics, her company, helped edit the film, and she had a big part in the creativity of how it's edited together. So we really worked hard together, and we were able to come up with something that I think explores kind of where we are in America with regard to Asian Americans of all different descents. And this also was a little bit spurred on by the recent passing of one of our dance alum, Jory Horn, Cambodian American, who also was very much on our minds when we were creating.
Well, thank you. That is wonderful to hear a little bit of the behind the scenes of your latest U-Nite creation. Do you have anything else you want to share with us?
I would just say how honored I feel that these 5 women really put their trust in me to kind of lead this collaboration and say something about culture and how we so need all of us in America and how we're so enriched. And that's the message, is just how enriched we are by the diversity that we have. And just very honored that they trusted me to lead the way on this project.
Thank you. It's a beautiful work, and I'm so glad the folks visiting the Crocker blog got to engage with this and other works from the College of Arts and Letters at Sac State. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.
So that brings me to kind of the final offering I just wanted to touch on, which is presented by Nicole Limon, a lecturer in the theater department. And similarly with the work that Lorelei presented, it really reflects on some of the challenges faced by our BIPOC community members specifically. It's titled A Song for Daydreamers. And again, we can see how this period of isolation has really required these performing artists to think outside of the box with regard to utilizing technology to create shared performance spaces together. So I'm going to leave you with just a little clip of A Song for Daydreamers.
You are so loved. You are so cared for. You are genuinely helpful.
You are so loved.
Great, thank you, Houghton. I can't help but plug that Nicole and I have been fortunate enough to work on a new theater piece that's opening next week at Sac State called Dance Nation. So if you're in the mood for some live theater, head on over. I know that Dean Meyer is going to give some other announcements at the end of our time together about other events, but it's a piece that is truly special to me as I've been spending the last 6 weeks working on it with these incredible actors and community members. So please mark your calendars. With that, I'm going to send it over to Brett Williams so he can share some more of the amazing work by our colleagues in the college.
Thank you, Megan. I'm Samuel Brett Williams. I'm an assistant professor of screenwriting in the English department, and I'm going to introduce 4 of the projects. The first one is a short narrative film by Sac State film professor Dan Janos called Apotheosis. It's about an aging writer who's preparing to quit the afterlife, but before doing so, she invites her former mentee to carry the torch when she's gone. Professor Janos wanted to make sure that it was clear he used Sac State students to help make this movie. It's a very touching idea, the idea that someone might have a second shot at artistic integrity in an afterlife, as if they could make up for their life before. Also interesting in this piece is the idea of one writer passing on the torch to another to keep writing while she moves on from the afterlife. We're now going to see a short clip of the film. Thank you. And the next one we're going to look at, it was touched on by Kelly earlier. It's from Dr. Jeffrey Dim, a history professor at Sac State. This video provides the history of Ogunboto, the first Kamishibai, and by some account also the first superhero. During the 1930s and 50s, Kamishibai, or paper plays, were one of, and at times the most popular form of entertainment in Japan. Though aimed mostly at children, there were also performances for adults. This short film opens with a brief history of Ogunboto and its place within Japanese cultural history, followed by a performance of the very first Ogunboto, Kamishibai, and one produced a few years later. Dr. Dim told me the key point I was trying to get across was Kamishibai was one of the major entertainments in Japan, but because it was geared for children, it doesn't get much attention. And the history of street Kamishibai, the first and most important, was this scary-looking superhero named Ogunboto. Dr. Dim also has a YouTube channel he wants to plug called Dim Sensei. We're now going to watch a short clip of the video that he's presenting this year.
Is Ogunboto the world's first superhero?
Who is Ogunboto? What is Kamishibai?
Mystery tank stands in his way. Clang, 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 clang.
Where did Ogunboto first emerge? In the streets of Japan in 1930. As the very first Kamishibai. Watch this short film to find out more.
Thank you. The next piece I'm going to talk about is from Dr. Torsa Gasol in the English department. She has a video where she reads from her in-progress novel, Heartland. Heartland is set in India and the US and dwells on how class, religion, and migration shape human intimacies. Dr. Gasol told me recently, I'm trying to move away from social, realist exploration of conflicts in fiction to a more introspective style of writing. Heartland poses questions about living, the value and nature of life, with reference to the caste politics in India's predominantly Hindu society. What caste one is supposed to decide the worth of one's life in Hinduism. Death rituals are different for members of different castes. So the story opens with death and the rituals around death. You get to see the caste expressions. Dr. Gasol went on to say the other aspect of the novel that is new to me as a writer is the centering of a romantic relationship. This has to do with my desire to work with the Sringara Rasa, a kind of effect in Indian philosophy, which is the most pervasive aesthetic sensibility in regional art and literature from India, even though I'm writing in English. And the final piece I'm going to introduce is a 10-minute video from Dr. Shani Malvini Redden. It's a 10-minute performance video based upon her book, 101 Pat-Downs, an undercover look at airport security in the TSA. In the video, Dr. Malvini Redden shares entertaining and informative stories about airport security. Her performance invites audience members to consider how they feel and communicate in airport security, whether they're pro travelers or newbies. In the video, you learn about aqua threat, what really happens when you break the rules, and about the bad passenger behavior that makes TSA officers question their faith in humanity. Along the way, you'll learn communication tips to make security experiences feel safer and more humane. Dr. Malvini Redden also wanted to make sure she thanked her husband who did the voiceover for the video. And we're now going to look at a short clip of the video that's based upon her book.
It was an ordinary September day until 19 men changed the face of history, hijacking 3 planes, killing more than 3,000 people in 3 states, and decimating, for a time, a way of life. But far from destroying the American spirit, the terrorist actions of September 11, 2001 spawned an elite crime-fighting team, leaving no diaper unturned, no grandma unmolested, no breasts unfondled. The TSA. In a world where terrorists lurk behind every boarding pass, the Transportation Security Administration has declared war on water, on shoes, on snow globes, on children and the differently abled, on cupcakes, on people of color.
Thank you. I'm now going to pass it on to my colleague, Professor Summer Ventus.
Thank you, Brett. I'm Summer Ventus, Assistant Professor of Printmaking in the Art Department at Sac State, and I am so pleased to get to introduce the curator of this year's CSUS faculty exhibition held in conjunction with U-Nite live at the Crocker. And that curator is Manuel Rios. Manuel Fernando Rios is an artist, curator, Axis Gallery member, YOLO Arts board member, and is Associate Professor of Art at Woodland Community College in Woodland, California. He earned his BA and MA in studio art from California State University, Sacramento, and received his MFA with an emphasis in painting from the University of California, Davis. His work was recently published, very recently, it just came out this week, in the book titled Articulator, Art and Conversation with Sacramento Creatives.
Thank you so much for that intro, Summer. So I'm really excited, not only because I earned my BA and MA at Sac State, but also because I was asked to curate the exhibition as an associate professor of art at Woodland Community College myself. So it's kind of surreal, but in a very good way. And with the help of the Crocker Museum's Crystal Ruiz and her staff, we were able to put together a really awesome show that I think everybody's going to enjoy. So I'd like to do is do a little slideshow and have a little walkthrough of the show. So first we have right here, this is the first exhibition space. And on the left side, you can see some 2D artwork. On the right side, there's some more sculptural aspect pieces. And if you're looking at that colorful piece on the right, that's actually a virtual augmented sculpture. So it's not really popping out of the wall. If you see, if you go to the exhibition, there's actually a QR code where you get the app, and then you can actually look at the augmented sculpture with your phone. So that's pretty awesome. And that piece is by Professor Rachel Clark. The next space right here, this is the second exhibition space, and this is a little bit wider. And this houses works that are 2D as well, but also some sculptural installations and new media. And finally, we have the exhibition space that's located next to the Crocker Library. So now that we've done a little walkthrough of the spaces, I'd like to introduce you to some of the artists and some of their work. So first up, we have Nick Shepard, and his statement reads, "In these images, artist Nick Shepard displays photographs of temporary studio constructions that are cobbled together from scraps and zip ties, held in place with little more than some screws and gravity. In Collapse and Bungee, Shepard also uses unfinished sculptures and physical interventions in the gallery and surfaces in which to display his photographic prints. Shepard's work demonstrates his interest and highlights the construction and consumption of images, objects, and spaces using digital and analog processes." So this piece in particular really exemplifies that idea of something barely being held together. And if you're lucky enough to see the work physically, you might actually even see it kind of fall apart in front of your eyes, working as somewhat of a personless performance. Next, we have Adjunct Professor Joy Bertinison. Her statement reads, "I consider myself a narrative artist who uses the still life arrangement and self-portraiture as subjects. In order to convey a range of concepts, I tend to work thematically, and I develop ideas in the process of creating the work. I draw upon personal experiences along with invention to create artworks that are at times humorous, absurd, and dark. With a love of art history, I often reference or appropriate the images I've absorbed through the many years of looking and lecturing. Some of the varied themes that I've approached include the 7 mortal sins, cautionary tales, and boxing as a metaphor for the creative process. When the world, as we knew it, changed dramatically 18 months ago, it affected our thoughts and behaviors in ways that we couldn't have imagined. It has been as if we were living in an alternative reality of funhouse mirrors, the Twilight Zone reruns, and viral TikTok distortions. Like many, I've experienced a sense of disconnect, of strangeness, and feeling out of sorts that is best expressed through the contorted form." So I really enjoy her pieces right here, where they're really warped. It reminds me of the warped grid images that I have my students draw sometimes for their projects. And I also enjoy the this image because it, when she talks about her statement, she talks about that fun house mirror effect, and this really exemplifies that. And I also love the humor of the tooth popping out of her fiance Michael's mouth mid composition. So humor is always good, and especially during these times, it's kind of good to laugh every once in a while. Next, we have our own presenter, Summer Ventus, work right here, and her statement reads, "My work engages in the reciprocal relationships between internal and external landscapes, between and among people and our environments. During the pandemic, these landscapes have taken on different contours. COVID and wildlife smoke have turned the very air we breathe into a source of danger. The need to physically isolate from each other has brought into sharper focus the divisions that have existed in our society from its beginnings." So like many people since COVID-19, this pandemic really affected you personally. And I not only believe that this work is very brave, but it's also visually stunning. And as a person who started off as a screen printer myself, I really appreciate how you used your skill on printing on balloons and how subtle it is. Because I think that subtlety can sometimes be even more impactful than something that's very blunt and in your face. Next, we have Professor Luis Garcia, and his artist statement reads, "The body of work being submitted for this exhibition was produced with the intention of telling a counter narrative of the histories of our nation. The purpose behind the newspaper collages was to create my own headline on the front page of the Los Angeles Times. The stories of the front page highlight moments in which communities of color were targeted based on acts of racism. The car references highlight the year in which these civil rights violations were committed. All images of this body of work touch on the experiences of immigrants and the stories that are not often brought to light." So not only do I really appreciate the technique that he uses here, where he actually cuts out the newspaper clippings and collages them together for a composition, but then he also uses his skillful painting techniques to create his own imagery on top of that drives home the narrative that he's trying to create even more. Next up, we have Mark Emerson, adjunct professor. His statement reads, "I've always been aware of rhythm, the rhythms within us, the rhythm of our immediate environment, and the rhythm of the cosmos. It is simple to recognize rhythm as it relates to music. I attempt to enlist the elements of audible rhythm and translate those elements to painting. The repetitive shapes, values, and hues are integral components of this expression." So, I really love this work, and this is some of the newest work that Mark has actually produced. And if you know Mark Emerson's work, you know that his work is usually more hard-edged and not so circular. So this is kind of like a step in a new direction for Mark. But not only that, I thought it would be fitting to really highlight this piece because it pays homage to CSUS's late adjunct professor, Dave Wetzel. He was one of my professors, and everybody in the art community here in Sacramento really enjoyed having Dave Wetzel's presence around, his funny political commentaries, and especially his work. So we all miss him very much. So I wanted to make sure that we highlighted this piece right here. Lastly, I wanted to show Tavares Blackman's work. And his pieces aren't shown together all like this. He has 3 pieces in the exhibition. They're more spread out throughout the exhibition and kind of used as an anchor that makes this whole exhibition kind of come together as a whole. And if you want to know more about Tavares Blackman's work, he's actually having a solo exhibition at Access Gallery, and you can see some more information about that work in the chat. And the title of his exhibition is Dad Life. And if you want to know more about my artwork, you can go to manuelfernandorios.com. And with that, I hope you really enjoyed the exhibition.
Thank you so much, Manuel, and thank you so much for curating this exhibition. You did such an amazing job. I was so pleased to get to go and see it in person just the other day, and I encourage everybody to go and see it. It's up through January, so there's plenty of time to visit and revisit this great exhibition. And with that, I will send it back to you, Houghton.
Dima, I think we were both unmuted there. I was doing too much work on the back end, but I have to say, wow, I mean, U-Nite continues to amaze me. The scale, the richness, the depth. I mean, each and every year I'm surprised.
It's awe-inspiring. I was thinking of President Robert Nelson, the president of our university, likes to refer to us as a family. And often we talk about our struggles with family. I have the best friggin' family going. The College of Arts and Letters has the most creative, empathic faculty that one can imagine. And you're just getting a taste of it here. And the fact that our family gets to collaborate each year with your family is just fills my heart. But I think what's so special each year is that in some sense, we are very much in the moment, right? So much of what we've seen tonight and in the whole of U-Nite reflects what we've been through, but it also speaks to a much larger audience. And this way we get to connect with that. I'd be remiss if I didn't also say thank you to so many people. So I thank you and the Crocker, Stacey and Crystal and the whole crew. We have you've seen many of them, our U-Nite committee, which includes Summer and Kelly and Brett and Dan Janis and Megan, Aaron Mahoney, my staff, who's just put it all together, Manuel, who is so much a part of our family, and every one of our faculty contributors who are as brilliant in the classroom as they are in the work that you've seen. So this is not the end. It's as Stacey suggested, this each year is just the beginning. Tonight, I get to participate in our first performance for the Festival of New American Music. As Megan noticed, we've got Dance Nation coming up. We just love having live audiences. And we will have a live Festival of the Arts in the spring. And then next year at the Crocker Live.
Back in person, right?
Exactly.
I'll throw some links to all those upcoming events in the chat as we play out. But we have a little surprise for everybody. So also, before we get to that, I do want to thank you too, Dean Meyer, for all your hard work, especially on this year. Everything came together in a really efficient way, under a tight deadline. So thank you so much for all the hard work that you play. And I mean, for carrying this event. Both you and Stacey are wonderful ambassadors for this community collaboration. And it's a real privilege to be a part of it. So thank you.
My pleasure.
So I know we have a highlight to throw back to, I think, the year 2014 and U-Nite in person. But before we go to the video, I just want to remind everybody that the Crocker is open for visitation. You can sign up for tickets through the website at crockerart.org. And I also want to extend a big thank you to the U-Nite committee, especially for their work on prepping for this live event presentation. It was a lot of back and forth, so I appreciate you all taking the time. So hopefully we'll see you back in person next year. And I hope you enjoyed this video as we play out. Take care and have a great rest of the weekend. Bye, Dean Meyer.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
We're just delighted to welcome all of you to the 3rd annual U-Nite.
It's titled Our Brain. We're having the participants write down any drugs they may have taken now or in the past and release them into the brain. Part of this is to show the problem with pharmaceuticals in our modern society.
you.